Good evening, friends. Welcome in the name of Jesus Christ. Let's enjoy some nice jazz for a few minutes while people join us on Facebook Live. I hope you've had a great Friday. Welcome to the daily update for this Friday. A few jokes. You know, for the longest time, cosmetic surgery, talking about cosmetic surgery was taboo. But now if you say the word Botox, nobody will raise an eyebrow. What do you call a fly without wings? This is an old one. A walk. And truthfully, the rotation of the earth makes my day. A little bit of news. We will be having our drive-in service this coming Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. It will be the last one for a while because of the heat. Folks don't like to sit out in the sun in the parking lot, so we will be going back to all online worship for a while. Our reopening task force met last night, and we're preparing a document to send out to the congregation sometime toward the end of next week about what future plans might look like. We are right now in the process of trying to plan an outdoor service to honor our graduates coming up toward the end of July. So stay tuned for more information about that. It should be a great night. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be an evening service because it'll be cooler. So just think about that towards the end of July, an opportunity for us to come together outside and honor our high school and college graduates for 2020, trying to get those high school graduates before they go off to college. Don't forget all the things that are going on in our church. As I've said before, we never closed. Only the building is closed. The church continues to be open. Tuesday evenings, the Racial Healing Handbook Study. That's at 7:30. Thursday evenings at 7:30. We have our virtual coffee house and bingo. Don't forget the Kids Book Club on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock. And so far, we have our Stacy with our art camp. I think we have about between 15 and 20 kids signed up to do that virtual art camp, and that's very exciting. For the time being, just keep in mind that Phase 2 in North Carolina will last through the 17th of July at the very earliest. And as of 5 o'clock today, which is past, the wearing a mask in public places is mandatory. So please get a mask and wear one. Do it to protect your brothers and sisters. It's not to protect you, it's to protect them. So John Wesley's second rule of his general rules is, actually the first rule is do no harm. First, do no harm. Second, do all the good you can do. Third, attend upon the ordinances of God. We are called as United Methodists, first and foremost, to do no harm. So let's do that by wearing a mask. Updates, prayer updates, prayers for Teddy Nicholson, who is the grandson of Brian and Linda Wiggs, and prayers for Rick Limley. And our prayer focus from our conference prayer calendar today is for our Park Service employees in our state and national parks. We don't pray for them very often, do we? And we certainly should. Another group that we don't pray for, I guess they would be included under law enforcement officers, are our game officers, fish and game employees. because that's dangerous work. I know in the county that I grew up in, Wilkes County, we had the murder of a game officer a few years ago. Someone poaching shot him with a high-powered rifle. So let's keep our Park Service employees, our game and wildlife people in our prayers, and also our law enforcement officers. Sunday, actually, is it Sunday? I guess it's Saturday. The prayer focus is on all of our law enforcement. They have a very difficult job to do, and it certainly hasn't gotten any easier in the last month, has it? The reflection today comes from, I found this book in my office today, and I didn't remember having it, and I'm glad I found it. It was a book of Lenten Reflections that was published by the annual conference in paperback form in 2015. And all of the reflections are around the issue of racism and racial reconciliation. So very timely that I found it. These are wonderful meditations. The one I want to read tonight comes from the Reverend Edie Gleaves. Edie is, as of July 1, will be actually as of, I guess, this coming Sunday, will preach her first sermon at Ocean View United Methodist Church down on the coast. Edie was the district superintendent for that district, and she has moved to that church. She is our conference's Episcopal delegate, and so in November of 2021, when they elect bishops, she will be up for bishop in the Southeast jurisdiction. She's a wonderful pastor and a wonderful person. I've known Edie for a long time. Let me read this devotion to you. This might come as a shocker, but the truth is, families don't always get along. Somebody has said, remember Winston Churchill's immortal words at the beginning of World War II. We shall fight on beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. That sounds like our family vacation. Sometimes it also sounds like the church. Let me bring it to a place closer and perhaps more uncomfortable to home. The most segregated hour of the week is 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. For nearly 35 years in full-time ministry, I have been blessed to serve on the local, annual, national, and global levels of the United Methodist Church. I am gratified to see the progress we've made in overcoming divisions within the church family around race. We've come a long way, yet I am still continually surprised by the surprise of people who learn that racism is alive and well in the church family. I continue to be surprised when people are surprised to learn that I, an African-American woman, personally still experience instances of racism in everyday life and also as a pastor in the church. While serving as an associate pastor in a predominantly white congregation, one of the pillars of that church was diagnosed with cancer. One of my roles as a pastor was hospital visitation. The senior pastor told me that the gentleman specifically asked that I not come to visit him. While he may have objected to the fact I was a woman pastor, as a woman of color, I find sexism often accompanies racism. The lead pastor and I both knew his primary resistance was because I was black. A few weeks later, we were having communion. In that particular church, people came up to the kneeling rail to receive the bread and then dipped it in the cup. The senior pastor would go before me, breaking the bread and placing it in the waiting hands of the person kneeling. I would follow with the cup. I didn't know the fellow who had refused my hospital visit was back in church that Sunday. I didn't see him kneeling to receive communion until I was almost upon him. This is my body broken for you, the lead pastor said as he placed the piece of bread in the man's hands. The gentleman wouldn't look at me. I noticed he was trembling. I could see his eyes were brimming with tears. As I looked more intently, I could tell this was a man who knew he had done something wrong. He knew what had been in his heart was wrong. From the slump in his slight, frail shoulders and the way his head was bowed, I could tell he was ashamed and he was sorry. I also discerned I was more hurt and angry by his rejection than I realized. In that instant, it occurred to me I could easily walk right past him without offering him the cup. I could pass him by without sharing the blood of Christ shed for him. I could deny this brother the sacrament that he so clearly wanted and needed. No one would notice or be wiser except him and me and God. The blood of Christ for you, I said. He looked at me then. Our eyes met, and the brimming tears spilled over. He dipped his bread into the cup, and I walked on past to the next kneeler. I believe that in that moment we both received new life. Through that mystery of the broken bread and the cup, that broken place between sister and brother, which had divided, was transformed by Christ. Our kinship as family had been made new. Racism has been described as America's original sin. Our Methodist history has its share of the less than positive when it comes to racism. While we can and should celebrate racial progress, we cannot remain silent about the negative attitudes and actions around race which are alive and well, if more subtle and sophisticated. Racism is insidious. Racism is an elephant in our collective local church's living room, which we're still reluctant to talk about. As disciples of Jesus Christ, called United Methodists, we are uniquely positioned to demonstrate to one another and to the world the true oneness proclaimed in Galatians 3:28. Thanks be to God. And thank you, Edie. And we are certainly praying and hoping that you will be elected a bishop and will represent North Carolina well in 2021. I am glad to know you and blessed to have served with you. The prayer for this evening is actually more of a little meditation. So keep in your mind those folks I said to pray for. I like this, and I'm not sure I've used this yet. I copied it months ago, and I don't think I ever read it to you. It's called Blessing When the World is Ending. It's a reflection on the times we're going through. So let this be your prayer and meditation. Look, the world is always ending somewhere. Somewhere the sun has come crashing down. Somewhere it's gone completely dark. Somewhere it's ended with a gun, a knife, a fist. Somewhere it's ended with a slammed door, a shattered hope. Somewhere it's ended with the utter quiet that follows the news from the phone, the TV, the hospital room. Somewhere the world has ended with a tenderness that will break your heart. But listen, this blessing means to be anything but morose. It's not come to cause despair. It's simply here because there is nothing a blessing is better suited for than an ending. Nothing that cries out more for a blessing than when a world is falling apart. This blessing will not fix you, will not mend you, will not give you false comfort. It will not talk to you about one door opening when another one closes. It will simply sit itself beside you among the shards and gently turn your face toward the direction from which the light will come, gathering itself about you as the world begins again. It's beautiful. And it's appropriate for all the things that we're going through and have been going through for some time now. So let that be a blessing to you, my friends. Good night to you all. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope that I will see you in some shape or form on Sunday morning. Good night and a better tomorrow. And God bless you all.